aerosol kits just for convenience, or aerosol cans I should say, for convenience when spraying large areas. Up until now, basically what I've always done is your aerosol, I have a bowl with some hot water, just warm it up. And again, when you do warm your cans up, just makes it just like a coffee cup warm, you know, that's just warm, not boiling hot, but just so the can feels warm. But generally I'll put it in, 5-10 seconds, give it a good shake, do it again, 5-10 seconds, a good shake, and make sure that the heat is through the whole paint. And again, if you get it too hot, you generally find your paint going everywhere, but if you get it just right, you'll get a good flow. Only trouble with cans are, you get 30% on the model and 70% in the atmosphere, and that's basically what I used to do in the past. On hyperscale, I've been reading a lot of people about, and other forums about people decanting their AS12 or their spray can, and I went, okay. And recently I saw a technique a guy used where he had a straw. He actually had placed the straw over the end, cut it down, and he had a little flat section down there, and he decanted it into a container. And I went, oh, okay. So that's how you do it. The thing is, what you've got to remember, it's under pressure, so when you're going to decant it into a container, it's going to tend to want to go everywhere because it is under pressure. So the idea of is, when you're going to decant it, is trying to contain it within that container.
But how do you attach the straw to the...
Well, I couldn't quite see how he actually did that, whether he actually taped it, but you could see that the straw was on the end, and he'd cut it off the length and he was into a jar. And I went, oh, okay. That's one method of doing it. I picked up these little medical containers from one of the guys at the club, Darren, and basically I went, well, I can use the container, but again, what am I going to do to try and keep it contained? So the old lunch bag, okay, just over the top, a couple of lackey bands to hold it, and just enough of an opening so that you can actually get the nozzle in, and that seemed to have worked for me. So we'll give the can a good shape. Again, you can use any size jar, you know, an old Vegemite jar with the lid. But again, what you're going to try and do is, even though it might contain it, is you've got to be careful that you're not going to get leakage underneath. So it's just a bit of an experiment of trying to keep the paint contained within the jar. How much do you spray into the container? Well, that's a bit of trial and error. But what I did find is you tend to use far less paint, because of course you're not spreading it all in the atmosphere, and your cans of aerosol will last a lot longer. So basically, do you count to, anyone want to do a bit of chroming? No? So basically, you know, that's how you start off, and as you can see in there, now what it's doing at the moment, it's gassing off. That's all the air bubbles, okay? So that's what it's doing at the moment. So all those air bubbles you see, it is gassing off. So it's best that if you've sprayed it into it, just let it gas off a bit. Now, what you've also got to remember, these cans are already pre-mixed, so it's thinner and paint and everything in it. But what I read as well, what the guys do, is they put a small amount of levelling thinner, just to help.
That's the Gunz one?
That's the Gunz one. Okay. And how much do you put in? I don't know. Just a bit of a guesstimate. Depending on how much paint you've sprayed in there will depend on how much levelling thinner. But what you can see, then the gassing off stops once you put your levelling thinner in, and you've got, it might look very thin. And basically that's what I did with the Meteor. The cup was filled about probably ½ centimetre of paint when I did the Meteor, bit of levelling thinner, and then I just swirled it round in the airbrush, and I basically painted 2 light coats. I went over the entire model, 1 coat, again a 2nd coat, and being that Tamiya, the coverage is phenomenal. You might say, oh, it looks awfully, like I said, it looks very thin in the cup, but it's amazing on how well it does cover and it goes on.
There's no thinner than any of that stuff like Gold Clad and the Lao ones.
And the AK ones that you get in the jar. But the beauty of being a Tamiya, of course, once it dries, within about half an hour, it's rock hard. You can scratch it, you can chip it. Yeah, and it just won't come off if it's on a good primer base. But yeah, so basically that's the thing to be careful of if you're going to decant paint, is the container you're going to decant it into. Cover it in some way so that you don't get, as you can see, you do get a fair amount of overspray.
Yep.
So you want to keep some kind of lid to contain it within the container. Yeah, and you'll find that your cans now will last a lot longer.
I suppose you then go from it being a very expensive way to paint to being quite a cheap way of getting some of these colours.
So what does a little can cost you?
Well, these cans now, I think they're about $18.
Well, you've got a price on it there, haven't you?
No, I don't. Oh, this one. No, that's just they're not cheap anymore. The last can of AS12 I bought, I went, holy shit, $18. I went, and even some of the primers now in the cans are getting a bit expensive.
One of the good things that I've been with some of your stuff is it's, I use this satin black on a bike. That's one I was riding.
Yeah.
And it was on grab handles and all sorts of stuff, and stuff that's getting worn all the time. But a couple of good coats on it, and that outlook, my use of the bike, it's I was riding that thing for years.
Yeah.
It hangs out really well.
Yeah. Oh no, but look, you're going to get a lot more. How would you say, coverage out of your aerosol cans by decanting. And now that I've kind of experimented with it myself, that's something I will definitely be doing in the future, is decanting from the aerosol can, mixing it and spraying it.
So that levelling thinner is for the lacquer range, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
you
use that to clean your brush?
No. I just use normal straight lacquer thinners.
So you use
So
that for
don't wait. This is like, what's this? This is, I haven't got my glasses.
$20-something.
$20-something bucks. You know, that's $22.
Yeah,
You know, once
expensive way to clean
that's
it.
right. That's expensive. So I just use levelling thinners and their lacquer thinners for thinning their paints.
Yeah.
But for cleanup, I just use straight lacquer thinners, because the normal off-the-shelf lacquer thinners is too hot. Whereas
Same for like GP thinners. Have you tried that?
I haven't tried GP, but again, you can use lacquer thinners or GP for clean. But I've just found that the off-the-shelf thinners sometimes are a bit too hot. These seem to be watered down a bit. Whether that somehow they're not as aggressive. Even when it comes to cleaning up, I can clean up on plastic with this. If I use normal lacquer thinners, it's like glue, like MEK. It really starts to destroy the plastic.
Yeah.
Whereas this doesn't. It's not as aggressive. So that's why I use it for their thinning, but not for the cleaning.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for that, Rene. Much appreciated.
All right. Anyone want a sniff? Quick sniff?